Hey, hey!
Hey, Ray!
Rise and shine, gals. This is your host, Ray.
And this is your co-host, Hey, and this is your Not So Average Gal podcast.
We have a very special guest today here with us, our dad.
Hello.
We're going to be talking about growing up, what it was like for him to have two girls, and what life's like not having us living with him anymore.
Alrighty, Dad. So, do you want to just tell us a little bit about yourself?
So yeah, I live in Washington State. I've been here my whole life. Grew up in a small island, and that's where we all lived till 94 when I joined the Army, and got out of the Army in 97, and I was in Georgia at that time. And then as soon as I got out of the Army, I met the girl's mom, and we started getting serious and decided to have a couple kids, and the rest is history.
What is your favorite story from the Army? Got any good stories or cool experiences?
Favorite story from the Army? Yes. So I was in the infantry and I drove a Bradley, and I think they're out of service now. But back then, in the old days, I drove a Bradley, and our turret stopped working during a live fire exercise. So we had to take the Bradley back to the shop, which was back at the main base. And on the way back, we had to go through a couple of, I want to say they were like irrigation drains, but they were tied into maybe a river or something. And there was a bridge that went over the top. And we decided to hit the little water river at full speed and made quite the splash.
Yeah.
So there was another live fire exercise we were on, and we launched one of our missiles off of the turret, and it malfunctioned, hit a tree, knocked a tree over, and started to catch fire. So all stopped fire on that, and everybody got out with their little tiny shovels they had and threw sand on it, and finally got the fire out.
Huh.
Then there was another exercise we did for the Prime Minister of Egypt in Savannah, Georgia, and it was just a horse and pony show. We were trying to sell Egypt the Bradleys that we were using. So we got to play with all the stuff, the smoke screen and all the different guns and stuff like that. And I remember sitting in the driver's hatch, and we're all in formation and stuff like that. And I remember looking up at this Apache helicopter that was shooting a sandbag bunker that was in front of us. And I remember all the brass falling down from the 30 millimeter gun they were using, and it was a solid line of brass from the helicopter all the way to the ground.
Oh my gosh.
That was pretty cool. Yeah, it was pretty neat. So then, of course, we got to shoot it up too, and everything kind of just collapsed. There was no big explosions or anything, but it was pretty neat to watch.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's
stuff
cool.
Like that.
Yeah, some stories we've never heard before.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
Gotta keep you girls safe.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Alrighty, and then do you want to tell us a little bit about just growing up and maybe some fun stories from that too?
So growing up on the island, there wasn't a lot to do, but in school, during auto mechanics and stuff like that, we would always work on our vehicles. And I got into the lowrider scene, and had my first car was a 1980 Volkswagen Diesel Rabbit that I decided to lower, and joined a car club and had a subwoofer in the back. And then that car kept breaking down, so I ended up trading that car in and got a little Nissan pickup truck. And I was working for a painting company at the time, so we went ahead and painted a cool design on the front of it and got it all nice and clean. Lowered it. I didn't go too crazy. It didn't look super like, hey, look at me, I'm a lowrider. It was just a clean, classic look. But when you open up the door, it was full of speakers. And if you open up the bed, it was full of speakers. And joined another car club. And we just kind of sank a ton of money into that. And it was funny, this one old lady, I saw this one old lady, she says, I am so happy that you spend your time working on your vehicle and you're not out causing problems. And that always stuck with me, that somebody in an older generation than myself actually had some appreciation that we were putting our money into something we enjoyed and we weren't causing a bunch of problems and getting into a bunch of trouble and stuff like that, even though we kind of, well, we didn't get into too many problems.
Yeah.
You know.
I remember a family member worked at a restaurant down by the water, and you drove by and all the dishes were clinking and clanking.
So your aunt was at dinner with Grandma and Grandpa.
Oh, is that what it was?
That's what it was. And as soon as I got my truck out of the shop, I had to test out the speakers, and they claimed that all the dishes and the silverware and stuff was rattling in the kitchen. Don't know if it's true, but they knew I was there, so they're not psychic, you know. So yeah, it was pretty funny.
That's funny.
That does sound like fun.
Entered some car shows, did Nopi Nationals in Georgia, and it was pretty loud stereo, loud enough that it would, I had, they're called ports, that allow the air to move with the subwoofer, and could blow your hat off your head looking in the back. No. Yeah,
Dang.
Oh my goodness. So that's a little bit, just from your childhood. So what was it like just growing up with Grandma and Grandpa?
Growing up with Grandma and Grandpa was fun. We lived on the beach. There was a lot of fishing with Grandpa. We would go on family trips and do bird hunting. We would go camping. Grandpa would take me out of school when I was younger and take me elk hunting. And we would get some good bonding time out in the woods. And we never really were that successful, but we had a good time.
That's all that matters.
Yeah. So Grandma and I never really hung out unless she had to go to Walmart. We all know how Grandma loved Walmart. And I would just try to, as I got older, I would try to show my appreciation by cooking dinners and having barbecues. 4th of July, we would set up a volleyball net, had friends over. We would all play volleyball and wash our cars and have a barbecue and then stay for the fireworks. And the fireworks display was right on the beach, just down from the house. We all remember that. And super close, so front row seat to watch the fireworks. Yeah.
Nice. So we talked about this question a little bit, and we don't really remember exactly how we told Grandma and Grandpa that you were going to have me, but is there a story that you can think of about, like, around the time that I was being born, that Grandma and Grandpa was there?
So everybody was in the room, your Nana and Papa and your Grandma and Grandpa, and your mom was always hot. And the room was ice cold. And everybody had their coats on in July. And I didn't eat the whole time your mom was in labor. I don't remember how long it was, but it was like 20 hours or something crazy.
Yeah.
And I was frozen. And I was wrapped up in sheets. And I looked like a mummy, kind of. And you were born. And then after you were born, we started making the calls saying you were born. And we called the friend that you were named after a couple different times. And she kept saying, "You've already called me." Sorry, don't remember. Kind of delirious, kind of loopy. I was kind of starved and had to eat.
Yeah. Do you remember your first meal after I was born?
It was in the hospital. No.
No.
Hospital food.
Yeah.
Definitely hospital food. But
Nothing too
yeah,
crazy.
Nothing too crazy. But it was a lot of tears, a lot of joy. We were all excited.
Yeah.
It's a pretty fun time.
Do you remember how you felt when you first found out that you were going to have me?
So you were planned. So there was excitement. Yep. I was getting, well, I don't want to say I was getting old, but I was going on 30. I think I was 30 when you were born. And we just knew that if we wanted to have kids, we needed to do it now. I didn't want to be too old. So I wanted to enjoy fatherhood without being too old and not being able to do stuff with you in the yard and, you know, stuff like that. So just wanted to make sure that I was young enough to still have fun and play and do whatever we wanted to do.
Yeah.
Just how to do cartwheels and
Cartwheels, yep.
go to football.
Yep.
Did you always know that you wanted kids, or did you have like any time in your life you're like,
No, I always wanted a family. I knew I didn't want more than 2 children. So after we had you two, we went ahead and made it so I couldn't have any more children.
Yeah.
So yeah.
What is something that you wanted to be really intentional about with raising us?
So my intentions for you and you were just to live, be free, have fun, be respectful. I always just let you live life, learn from your mistakes. Never grounded them, ever. Anytime they wanted to do something, I put 100% trust in them. And until they proved me wrong that they were not responsible, then they would get in trouble. But they always came home when they said they would come home. And as far as I know, they never lied. But that's a secret that they have to live with. So I just let them live and be free and happy and learn from their own mistakes and grow up to be who they wanted to be. Yeah. So hopefully you turned out good. I'm teasing.
I think we're doing okay.
You're both awesome. So, yeah.
Do you want to tell the story of the cookie?
Okay, so this is the story of the cookie. So I don't even know how old I was. Do you remember, Dad?
We were in,
No.
Because we were in my first house.
so you were probably only,
Like 5. If that.
I think you were only about 3.
Yeah, so I was probably around 3 years old. And I feel like most families have the rule of eat all your dinner and you get dessert. And I didn't want to eat all of my dinner. And so I recruited Ray here to get me my cookie. And and I eat my cookie because I couldn't reach the cookie jar. And I eat it, and what is it? We came back into the living room or something like that, and either Mom or Dad says, like, did you have a cookie? I said, no. And
I remember
are
that
you
pretty
sure?
Good. It was me. Yeah.
Was it you? Do you want to tell the rest of the story? Because you obviously remember more than I do. I was 3 years old.
Well, I remember Hay had chocolate around her mouth. And if I remember right, you had chocolate around your mouth too?
Possibly, but I was allowed to eat a cookie because I had all my dinner.
Okay. So when I asked if you had a cookie and you said no, I kind of knew that you weren't telling the whole truth. So yeah, and then I don't remember if we punished you, but
I think we
You punished
got to go to
me.
the corner.
punished Ray.
Because I was tall enough to reach the cookies on the counter and Hay wasn't.
Yeah, so I remember that.
How was it different going from 1 kid to 2?
So time was taken up pretty well with 1 child. Ray was 3 when you were born. And it was a pretty easy transition going because there wasn't much time from diapers and all the habits that we learned from Ray to instill on you. And then after she was old enough to start helping, you know, Ray, will you please go get me the diaper bag? Or will you please go get her bottle out of the fridge or wherever it was? She actually started helping, so it made it kind of easy. And then she was learning also as you were in need of whatever you needed. And it wasn't bad.
Would you say that the transition going from 0 to 1 was harder than going from 1 to 2?
Yes. Only because we were young parents and you just kind of have to learn it on your own. Mm-hmm. I mean, I think they offer courses and classes and stuff like that. And we did do something, I think. The new moms, I think, mostly needed some guidance with some of the stuff that goes along with having a child. Mm-hmm. But for the most part, just keep you fed and clean. And you kind of had some problems with your tummy mm-hmm. and would get sick a lot, so that made it a little more difficult. We had a dog that would help with the cleanup process. That made it easy. We would also put blankets down when we knew that there was going to be a projectile happening.
They called it power puking.
We called it power puking. Over the coffee table. Did not hit the coffee table. Over the coffee table. Yeah. Good times.
Yeah. How old was I when I stopped doing that? Because I remember doing it sometimes.
She had a best friend dog bowl that would go around with her.
I don't remember the exact age. I remember that you had a hard time because your tummy hurt while you were in a car seat and we would drive you around. I don't know an age. Mm-hmm. But you got better, I don't know, 15, 16 years old? No, I'm teasing.
It's actually kind of true. I remember, like, a lot of things used to upset my stomach, like, all the time. Mm-hmm. And then it wasn't so much, like, food that upset my stomach anymore after, like, probably, like, 15, I think, is when it started getting better. And now I can, like, hot dogs. I couldn't eat hot dogs, but now I can eat hot dogs just fine.
Yep.
Those are just one thing that used to upset my stomach.
They upset a lot of people's stomachs. Yep.
Alrighty, and then what is a couple of your favorite memories raising us?
So I would have to say a couple of the fondest memories I have. We did go on a trip to Montana, and that was a lot of fun. That was, I mean, it was 10 years ago now, but it was when they were a little bit older. And we did watch the rodeo, and we just hung out with some friends and stuff like that. And younger than that, we did go on a camping trip to a KOA, and we wanted a tent site. And the tent site was next to a chain link fence next to the highway. And we said, can we get a different spot? Because we don't, I mean, a KOA, okay, yeah, you're not really camping. You're just kind of amongst a whole bunch of people. But we didn't really want to be 20 feet from a highway. Mm. So we got a different spot. But actually, they upgraded us to a cabin. So we went into a cabin. And that night, we heard a bunch of, I don't know if you guys remember it, but we heard yelling and horns honking, and opened up the door, and there was a vehicle taking off, and they just robbed the cabin next to us. You don't remember that, do you?
No.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah. So that was interesting. Maybe not one of our funnest trips, but
definitely memorable.
Yeah.
Definitely memorable. So another trip was to Yellowstone. We went with Grandma and Grandpa, my parents. And we went in through the west entrance and stayed the night, and it was super windy and it was super cold. And our tent was, I think it tore. or the zipper broke or something. And it was really windy, and it was an issue keeping the tent stake down. And then we went through and started looking at all the different stuff. And one of the first stops, I'm sure if anybody's ever been to Yellowstone on the west side, the first ooh-ah moment is after you wait in line for an hour, you wonder what everybody's looking at, and you look up, and it's an eagle's nest. And I was like, well, we kind of have eagles here in Washington, so that wasn't real exciting. And then we continued on, and we looked at different stuff, and we saw Old Faithful, and coming back, we went into Wyoming, and then on the way back, Ray experienced a bee. We were following Grandma and Grandpa behind them, and Grandpa suddenly hit the brakes and turn signal and cut through all the traffic and had to get off the side of the road onto a wide spot on the road. And we thought there was a serious emergency, which there was, because it was a bee that was attacking Ray in the car seat.
About how old was I?
I don't remember. 8, 7.
Mm-hmm.
And you got out of your car seat and you ran. I don't know if you ran, but you got up and jumped to the front of the van where Grandpa was driving, screaming, yelling that you were getting attacked by a bee, and it scared the heck out of Grandpa. So he made an emergency stop. He was probably more freaked out than you were because he didn't know what the heck was going on. So, of course, that kind of spooked us all out. But then there was, I don't remember if this happened before or after, it doesn't matter, but there was one of the stops had a public restroom. And your grandpa and I were very entertained by watching the people go into the restroom and turn around and come out of the restroom coughing and gagging for how bad it smelled. And we just kept laughing. It was so fun.
Yeah.
It was entertainment. We wished we could have filmed it and put that on YouTube, 'cause that's pretty fun.
Huh. So, what would you say the hardest thing about raising us was?
Not to sound too biased, but my 2 girls are pretty amazing. They never really cause that many problems. Raina had a few incidences where she was on the beach and she was walking on a path that had kind of a narrow strip across the side. And she was trying to do like a balance beam. But she was in ballet, I think, at that time anyway. So you did fall. You did hit your face on the logs. And we had to take you to the ER for that. There was a trampoline episode where you jumped really high and you had help, I think, jumping high. And flew off the trampoline and landed on your back, knocked the wind out of you.
That one wasn't too bad, though.
No.
Just a little.
Yeah, just a lot of tears. A lot of tears. You like to do cartwheels. And thank goodness that they make replacement glass for ovens.
Let's just say her foot went through the glass door of the oven
Yep.
at Grandma's house.
How are we going to explain this to Grandpa?
Surprisingly, that one didn't cut me, or I
Yeah.
had no, like,
Problems.
Yeah.
Just had to go buy new glass.
sweep up the glass off the kitchen floor.
And,
Just trying to hide it from Grandpa.
and then the cartwheel that sent you into the table that knocked over the, I don't know what you call them.
I think it was like an incense
Has
vase.
the little light under the thing that melts and creates a
Oh, is that
scent,
what it was?
right? I think. And then it tipped over, hit the carpet, and it was Berber carpet, and the kind of not melted, but kind of like the chemical reaction from the liquid screwed up the carpet, and then when you ran over it with the vacuum cleaner, it because it's Berber, it wound up a big long line in the carpet with the vacuum cleaner. So yeah, other than that, no, all's good. Haley was a perfect child. I don't remember anything with Hay.
I don't know.
I don't
feel
remember
like
anything.
if anyone was to remember, it'd be Ray. I don't know. I always just sat and watched.
There was a Christmas episode where we decided to spend our whole hard-earned dollar to make sure that Hay had enough Barbies. And our neighbor bought her the Barbie house, and your mom and I bought like every Barbie we could find.
And also, this Barbie house was the 3-story Barbie dream house. Very big.
They needed to be assembled, and I think it took less time to assemble the Barbie house than it did to cut the hair out of the packaging of each Barbie. I'll never forget that. So the next time you go out and buy a Barbie doll, see if its hair is stitched. And if it is, hand it to somebody and say, here, do this for me. Because you don't want to get stuck doing it.